Okay, so the year is 1996. That winter, I found out that I got to be head naturalist. And so I was going to be able to be the one that was on the microphone that summer. And I was so excited because it was kind of the job that I had wanted. So we were working with a group at that time called the Whale Conservation Institute. And I talked with Kim and I was like, what can I do to help you? You know, I was all excited. And she handed me this stack of papers and was like, here, find some interns. And I thought, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I managed to find interns that summer. I had a great group of young scientists and educators that were coming out on the boat. And we had so much fun that summer. 1996 was drastically different than 1995. So it started out with a couple humpbacks, and actually one of them was Clipper. That was kind of one of those first couple of years I would see her a lot, and that she was the first whale we saw in 1996, and so that was part of why she kind of was one of my favorites. But then things really slowed down, and we had a few fin whales. I remember 3 days in a row, morning and afternoon, getting skunked. We had one trip with a school group where we had one minke whale, but the minke whale played with the boat. It's the only time I've ever had a minke whale engaged with the boat, but it was rolling around and swimming underneath us. It was so amazing. And then the end of June and into July, we had lots of whales showing up on Stellwagen, and we had lots of feeding. So whales come to Massachusetts to eat in the spring, summer, and fall. They go south for the winter. But even though they're up there in the feeding grounds, we sometimes don't see it. I think between 94 and 95, I only saw surface feeding 4 times. And so in 96, we had sometimes 20 or 30 humpbacks on a trip, all feeding at the surface, which was it was so incredible. And so it ended up being a fantastic year. And actually, I do have one of my last memories was our last trip of the season. We had actually seen Clipper the day before. We had gone north and saw her on Jeffries. And then this particular trip, we went way south on Stellwagen, like close to Provincetown. And she was there again. She had traveled like 30, 35 miles from one day to the next. And she was huge at that point, I remember. And I remember thinking, oh, she's going to come back with a calf again next year. And so it was kind of, saying goodbye to our friend for the last trip of the year. But I'm going to share with you a few of the highlights from the year, because I started taking pictures. And so I can go back through and share some things with you. So I wanted to share with you some of the whales that we saw at that time. Let's see. One of the whales that we saw, or a couple that we saw that I haven't seen recently. There's a whale named Agassiz, and we had walrus, which I know a lot of people are familiar with walrus because that's one of my favorite pictures that I use. We had bullet and calf. So bullet was a cool whale. She was a big old whale. Colt is a whale that we saw. You're going to hear more about Colt later in other years. We had fracture again that summer and liner. So I just wanted to share some of these with you because they're whales that I hadn't thought about in a really long time, because some of them I haven't seen, for years out here. There's a whale named Molson. So actually, let me go back. Her real name is Rune, but she has all these white spots on her dorsal fin. And so Jimmy gave her the nickname of Molson. And so we ended up calling her Molson because the white spots looked like beer foam. We had Salt that summer. We had Scratch. Both of those ladies were out there this past year. We had Shark. Shark has the coolest tail because if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the little eye with the kind of shark-like mouth. We had a whale named Stub and Tab. So this picture of Tab I love because if you look in the back, you can see the Miss Cape Ann 3 was the catamaran that Captain Bills had. And then Tigress was another whale that I had forgotten about. Tigress we saw that year, and Milky Way. So Milky Way I had mentioned because she was Zeppelin's mom. But Milky Way was around quite a bit in the late 90s. So those are just some of the big whales that we saw. And then I wanted to just share with you some kind of fun highlights. So There was one day we went out there and there was this log with this cutest harbor seal sitting on top of it. So that was a picture of that. And then one of the other really cool things that happened that summer, and I've only seen it, I think I've seen it 3 times. So fin whales, when they go down on their dives, they don't lift their tails up. But this particular day we saw it, and it was almost like the whale had so much forward momentum, the tail kind of accidentally popped up at the end. But look at the tail stalk on this whale. It's so different than a humpback, because a humpback's tail comes in really thin and then spreads out to this really large tail. But the fin whales have these enormous tail stalks and these much smaller tails. So they're more designed for speed than the humpback whales are. And then I found a breaching picture of Nile, which was cool to see that. I did find a couple pictures of feeding whales. So we had a lot of feeding that summer. And so these are a couple. This one with its mouth open is one of my favorite pictures. It is from so long ago. And then a couple of these other ones, you can see the brown on the chin of the whales. And then those pleats on their belly, those folded areas of skin are all expanded because the whales are feeding. And you can see there's just so many birds around. The birds are all there because it's super easy meal for them. There's a breach of thread. That was another cool whale to see. It's a breach in front of the Yankee Spirit. And then here's another picture of the Super Ranger. If you guys are around whale watching back then, you'll remember those. We had pilot whales that summer, which is really cool. I feel like we had them a lot back then. In fact, something I remembered about 94 and 95, we had one pilot whale that was with a group of Atlantic white-sided dolphins. It had a white stripe on its side, the pilot whale did. We saw that 2 years in a row. We saw that pilot whale with the dolphins. And then this last picture of Eastern Point Lighthouse, just such a cool picture, something that we pass, every day that we head out to sea. So I hope you enjoyed some of those memories. Remember some of the names of those whales. Look forward to next year. I think 97 was the best year I ever had in terms of whale numbers. Thanks.